All right, YouTube faithful. Kind of the first video here, instructional, or maybe how to, I don't even know what you want to call it. Maybe helping somebody looking for some internal Harley Davidson knowledge. I know I looked pretty hard Google searching, forum searching without a whole lot of just like, hey, here it is, here's how it comes apart, here's how it works. So, here it is. It's my 68 FL, doing a CV carb conversion on it. Needed to obviously get a little better carb on there than a factory carb. And, I want to try to keep the original internal throttle. So that's what led me to this quest of how to do that. Like I said, there's some info out there, a lot of opinions, a lot of I did this and I did that, but not a lot of, hey, this is maybe kind of how it worked or how you get into it type thing. So here I am. All right, so here it is stock. This grip was on here. Pull this chrome plug off the end. Pull this grip off, which was a absolute disaster and nightmare. But that's a whole nother video, potentially. Anyway, you see a huge screw right there. Just a flat blade screw, if you can see that there. You just take that out, and then once that's loose, you take that out of the end. There's also a spring in there. And then once you've got this loose, that'll slide right off the grip. And from there, you can kind of see that spring internally. There, so once you got this guy out, that'll slide off of your handlebar. And then that's when you see this. You've got the internal slider and a couple of bearings. So 1, 2, maybe I'll just get the whole pin out of here. So I got most of the grease out, not all of it. So then that pin and that second bearing comes out of there. So there's that assembly. And then you've got that internal slider. And what you'll end up doing is you'll just pull that internal slider back. And then there's your set screw that holds your cable. And I can slide all the way out so you can see it. Oh, I'm running up to my tape there. But anyway, so that's that piece. You slide it in, hit your set screw, and away you go. What I did is I kept the original spiral cable that would have came on this bike from the factory. Cut it a little bit shorter as the CV carb. The cable guides are on the different side. This one had a Bendix on it, so the factory Bendix stuff was over here, so the CV carb guides are on this side. So I cut this shorter, and you can see I've got a little bit of loopage there. I'm going to have to cut this even shorter, which you can do. What I'm currently waiting for, and why it's currently not done, is I'm going to do a 70-degree cable end with the adjuster, kind of like on a late model Harley you would see up at the handlebar, you know, with the adjustments up here. I'm going to run that down here, put it into my guide, and then put this cable piece, the end here, into that guide, so I'll be able to actually get, you know, some throttle adjustment, because once you set this set screw on this cable, you have to pull it, you know, further than you can get to the set screw. So if I made it tight on my carb, I'd have just way too much slack up here, and I'd never be able to get full travel out of my carb. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to essentially get this, this was just a universal throttle cable kit on Amazon that came with, it did come with a new casing. However, I chose to use the factory casing as it runs, you know, internally all the way up to the handlebar, and it's the end of the cable is actually held up here with a set screw, and it's pretty tough to get out. So I was able to slide out the factory steel internal wire and just slide and pull the new braided cable through that existing. So my next video, once I get my pieces in, I will be cutting that a little bit shorter. Just, you want to try to keep this straight as you can so you don't, your cable is not getting bound up, and your pole will certainly be harder, if it has to go up and down and loop and swoop and all that sort of stuff too. So anyway, yeah, any questions, shoot me a message, comment, and I can forward you the links, for the cable kit I'm using. Used a CV carb adapter from Killer Motorcycle Products on eBay. I ran the factory insulator block just to get me clearance for that cable guide on that shovel, on that top rocker box. You'll notice the two worm drive clamps and those hunks of silicone, which is kind of unique. It's an intake manifold kit from F&A Customs that really is nice. It was simple. It fit great and should seal it up. That's kind of a trouble spot on some of these shovel heads, those bands and those clamps. So I was really looking forward to that, and that's pretty darn nice too. And then always with the CV carb, definitely get some sort of support. That was another eBay item. I think it was only about 20 bucks, just to kind of add a little rigidness to this whole assembly, just because once you get your air cleaner on there, it's going to be some weight on the end. I'm choosing, I wanted to run the factory oval cover. So what I did is found an early Sportster Screaming Eagle air cleaner kit. So it's got that flat back plate, K&N filter, and more importantly, the two widespread holes, to run the factory oval cover, which I desperately wanted to do. So anyway, that'll end up getting bolted on here, and that factory cover will go on there. And once you get the tank on there, you'll hardly know unless, you're really looking. So like I said, trying to update it while trying to keep it somewhat original. This rascal, point I forgot to mention while I was up there at the handlebar. The factory mechanism, if you will, is a push, where when you, twisted the throttle, it actually pushed the cable out, the inner steel out to open the carburetor. Well, any late model carburetor, Mikuni, SNS, CV, they're all, a pull. So Dennis Kirk, V-Twin Manufacturing, to name a few, offer this new mechanism that when you twist it is a pull action versus a push. So that was part of the reason why I really had to, or I shouldn't say had to, really wanted to get this stock grip off here so I could keep, the original grip. So I can put that original grip onto this sleeve once I get, all my cabling stuff figured out. So I'll go over that, during install, once my parts kind of come in. That's the life of a shovel head. Work on it for half hour, order parts, wait a week, work on it for half hour, order parts, and repeat. But, hey, it keeps you young, right? Keeps you moving. Patience. Shovel head teach you patience, and that is a fact. Anyway, I think that about covers the install of the CV carb so far. Oh, choke. You will need, obviously, to fab something up for your choke bracket. This old girl already had this bracket here, so I was able just to drill a larger hole in that bracket, and I ran my choke cable through the other side. So I was able to run that through, whereas, the factory cable choke, was up here on the dash, on the speedometer housing that I'll end up just capping and whatever, just, so a guy can keep that CV choke there. But yeah, hopefully that gets a little better idea of install. The opinions are kind of differ on that insulator block, whether you need it or not. Like I said, it's rubber mounted with those hunks of silicone there, so I don't know if the heat transfer would have been quite as good as it would have been from the factory, where you really needed that insulator block. However, it came down to spacing and that guide for me. And as you can kind of see, I'm only going to run one cable. This thing's got plenty of spring where it'll snap back with only one cable. So I ground off the idle side of the mount. And you'll also notice a little bit of angle there. You'll have to bend that back just a little bit to give yourself just the slightest amount of clearance on that rocker. But be advised, if you get cranking here, this piece will pop off. So I kind of forgot about that over the years and grabbed it with you know, my vise, and I ended up popping that cable guide off. So I did have to JB weld that back on there, but that's no big deal. It's just kind of a press fit from the factory. Can't put it on incorrectly. It's kind of got a way that it sits on that guide. So if it does break off, it's not that big a deal. You just JB weld it on there, and away you go. But yeah, anyway, 68 shovel, CV carb conversion. Any questions? Let me know. Be more than happy to help if I can.